One day, the universe will exhale its last breath, not with a bang, but with a whisper colder than silence itself. There will be no fireworks, no grand finale, only a deep stillness spreading across everything that ever was. The stars will have long since burned out, their light traveling endlessly through empty space, never to touch another eye. The galaxies will have drifted too far apart to see one another. The last flicker of warmth will fade like the dying ember of a forgotten fire, until there is nothing left but the quiet hum of eternity winding down. That is where the story of entropy leads, not to chaos, but to calm, not destruction, but rest. Yet, somehow, here we are, thinking, breathing, moving, little sparks of complexity dancing in the cold wind of that destiny. Everything that lives, shines, and dreams exists in defiance of this quiet, invisible law. Entropy doesn't shout, it doesn't punish, it doesn't even care. It simply waits. A patient tide that pulls at every atom, every heartbeat, every flame, drawing them all toward balance. The story of life, in all its wild beauty, is really the story of resistance against this pull. A long, fragile moment of rebellion written between two silences. The first, before birth. The second, after everything evens out. But what if that rebellion is only a brief shimmer, a bubble rising through dark water before it bursts and disappears? Entropy is not something distant or abstract. It's in the melting of ice, the fading of memories, the way a room grows messy, no matter how often it's cleaned. It's the slow unraveling of everything that tries to stay still. Think of a sandcastle built by small, eager hands on a vast beach. For a while, it stands proud, towers, arches, tiny walls catching the sunlight. But the air moves, the grains loosen, and the waves creep closer. The edges blur, the shape softens, until it's no longer a castle, just sand again. No violence, no tragedy, just the quiet return of order to disorder, of pattern to possibility. That's entropy, the natural tendency for things to spread out, to share their energy, to settle into the simplest form. Every atom in your body, every molecule of air, is gently sliding toward equilibrium. Not falling apart exactly, but relaxing, the way a stretched rope slowly goes slack. The same thing happens to stars, to galaxies, even to the light that travels between them. Over time, all differences fade. Hot becomes cold. Motion slows. Structure melts back into the great, even sea of the cosmos. It sounds like an ending, but it's also a kind of truth. Entropy isn't cruel. It's the universe's way of resting. Everything that burns must cool. Everything that rises must fall. Everything that shines must one day dim. Without it, nothing could happen at all. Change only exists because things move toward balance. In that movement, in that slow slide toward stillness, life finds its opening, a brief pocket where energy flows unevenly enough for patterns to form. Life is not a mistake in the face of entropy. It's a byproduct of it, a wave cresting before it breaks. Still, there's a strange sadness in knowing that everything we love is temporary by design. The warmth of a star, the pulse of a heart, the glow of thought itself, all destined to fade into evenness. Perhaps that's why beauty hurts, why joy feels so fragile. Somewhere inside us, we already understand that nothing stays. The sunset feels sacred precisely because it disappears. The breath we take feels precious because it must one day stop. Entropy gives meaning to time by making it finite. Take a moment to think about that. Every second, countless tiny battles are happening inside you. Cells repairing themselves, heat escaping your skin, electrons moving just a little slower. You are both growing and fading at once. The warmth that keeps you alive is also what pushes the universe toward equilibrium. It's a quiet paradox. Life feeding on imbalance, creating order from chaos, while simultaneously accelerating the very process that will dissolve it. Maybe that's why the night sky feels so emotional when you look at it too long. Every star you see is a perfect example of this tension, a balance between the outward pressure of heat and the inward pull of gravity. For a few billion years, that balance holds, creating light, warmth, and the ingredients for life. But in the end, the fuel runs out, the glow fades, the star collapses or drifts into the dark. Its energy, once concentrated, now spreads outward, thin and cool, joining the cosmic background. Yet from that fading, new things are born. Planets, elements, beings. Entropy doesn't erase, it transforms. There's something oddly comforting in that realization. Perhaps we are not fighting against entropy at all. Perhaps we are participating in its story, playing our role in a grand, universal sigh. Life may be a fleeting spark, but it's also the way the universe briefly feels itself, a ripple of awareness before the calm. Still, the question lingers like a faint echo at the edge of the mind. If everything moves towards stillness, what does that mean for us? For consciousness? For meaning? Are we just a wrinkle in the fabric of cosmic rest, destined to smooth out like everything else? Maybe. But within that wrinkle, within that short defiance, we discover something profound, the ability to wonder about it. To look entropy in the eye and say, I see you. In that act of seeing, perhaps there's a kind of victory. Not the kind that changes the outcome, but one that changes the experience. Life doesn't need to outlast entropy to matter. It only needs to exist long enough to feel the awe of being here at all, suspended between order and oblivion. So as the universe slowly exhales, spreading its warmth thinner and thinner across eternity, we continue to breathe in. Each inhale a small gesture of resistance, each heartbeat a whisper of defiance. We build, we dream, we love, not because we believe we can win against entropy, but because creating something beautiful within it is the only kind of victory that means anything. To understand where life goes when entropy wins, we must first understand what life truly is, and what it's made of in a universe that prefers simplicity over structure. The next part of this story begins there, in the quiet place between order and surrender, where existence itself learns to burn just bright enough to be remembered. Life is the ultimate rebellion, a small flame trembling in the endless wind. It flickers in the dark, fragile yet unyielding, daring to exist where nothing should. Against the pull of decay, it stretches upward like a candle refusing to die in a cold, indifferent room. Every heartbeat, every breath, every green leaf trembling in sunlight is a soft defiance, a declaration that order can, for a brief moment, rise from the ruins of chaos. Across this blue planet, life has found 1,000 improbable ways to persist. Beneath the Antarctic ice, in boiling acid pools, in the silent pressure of the deep sea where light has never touched, it continues its quiet rebellion. Each organism a spark that borrows energy from the world around it, holding shape just long enough to make meaning before the tide of entropy closes in again. The sunlight that falls on your skin, the air that fills your lungs, the warmth in your blood, all are borrowed from the universe's slow unraveling. Life survives by using energy that would otherwise drift away, capturing it, folding it into patterns, weaving momentary order out of a storm that never stops spreading. The first cells on Earth did not know they were defying a cosmic principle. They were only following gradients, tiny differences in temperature, in light, in chemistry. Where there was imbalance, life slipped in and began to feed. That's the secret. Life doesn't end entropy, it dances with it. It takes what the universe offers, heat from the sun, nutrients from decay, motion from tides, and rearranges it into something that breathes. Every cell is a miniature factory, pulling energy in, releasing it out, creating local order by increasing disorder somewhere else. It's not a victory over entropy, it's a clever negotiation. The green leaf on a tree turns sunlight into sugar, but in doing so, releases heat into the air. A living creature eats that sugar, grows, moves, and exudes warmth, spreading energy outward. Every movement of life is a transaction, a trade between the structure of being and the chaos of becoming. We stay alive by making the world around us a little more disordered. It's strange, isn't it? The very act of living is a form of cosmic participation in decay. Consider the fire. It burns bright, transforming wood into ash and light. The flame is beautiful precisely because it consumes. Life is no different. It burns, not always with fire, but with hunger, desire, curiosity. Every thought is a flicker of energy leaving the body as heat. Every heartbeat is a conversion of stored order into movement. To live is to use up, to transform, to turn the clean simplicity of matter into the messy complexity of experience. This might sound bleak, but it isn't. It's poetry written in thermodynamics. Life is not against entropy. It exists because of it. Without the flow of energy, without the imbalance between hot and cold, between full and empty, there would be no movement, no breath, no thought. The flame cannot exist without oxygen, without the space to burn. The beauty of life lies in its impermanence, its dependence on the very decay it seems to resist. Every sunrise fuels this contradiction. The Earth soaks in light from a star that is, even now, dying by degrees. That light nourishes forests, feeds oceans, powers the heartbeat of everything that crawls or soars or blooms. In each moment of growth, the sun grows fainter, one atom at a time. The tree grows tall while its source slowly fades. The paradox deepens. The more we thrive, the more the universe cools. To live is to quicken the march towards stillness. There's something haunting in that, but also deeply tender. Life, in all its striving, is not an accident of defiance, but a part of the same rhythm that pulls everything apart. The flame burns because the air allows it to, because the balance demands it. When you stand in the sunlight, feeling warmth spill across your face, you're participating in the grand exchange. Energy passes through you, lingers for a while as thought and breath and motion then moves on. Perhaps the most astonishing thing about this fragile flame is not that it burns, but that it persists. For billions of years, life has adapted, spread, multiplied, endured through catastrophe after catastrophe. It doesn't fight the flow, it learns to use it. When a volcano blankets the sky in ash, something below the surface keeps breathing. When the planet freezes, microbes linger near vents of warmth deep beneath the ocean floor. When forests fall, seedlings push through cracks of light. Every extinction has been a reorganization, not an end. The pattern continues in us. Human life is another expression of this cosmic stubbornness. We build cities, tell stories, make art, love one another, all elaborate ways of channeling energy into form before it slips away again. Every thought you have, every sentence spoken, every act of creation burns fuel. The lights that fill our homes, the machines that move us, the screens that glow with our attention, they are all bright, temporary bursts against the dark. There's a strange intimacy in knowing this. It connects every living thing, from the simplest microbe to the most complex mind. All are flickers from the same source, each consuming, releasing, transforming, participating in the same universal current. Life doesn't stand apart from entropy. It is entropy, given shape and motion and longing. The flame is part of the fire, not separate from it. Take a quiet moment and listen to your own breathing. Feel the heat in your skin, the faint pulse beneath your fingertips. That warmth is not yours to keep. It's borrowed energy, a small inheritance from the sun that will one day return to the sky as you cool. Every exhale is a gift back to the universe. It's humbling, yet oddly comforting, to know we belong to such a vast exchange. The more alive we are, the faster we spend what we have been given. A star burns its fuel more fiercely when it's massive, shining brighter but dying sooner. The same principle hums through every living thing. A hummingbird's heart beats over 1,000 times a minute, a blur of energy that cannot last long. A tortoise moves slowly, conserving its flame. Both live within the same law, only at different tempos. The difference is rhythm, not rule. So perhaps life's defiance is not really defiance at all. It is acceptance expressed in motion, and understanding that to exist is to participate in loss. To burn brighter is not to escape the dark, but to illuminate it briefly, making it visible, meaningful, almost gentle. The universe is not broken by this, it's completed by it. Every heartbeat, every spark, every fading star is part of entropy's great choreography. The paradox becomes clear. The more intensely we live, the more we hasten the universe's calm. Each act of creation, each burst of joy contributes to the slow expansion of stillness. It is tragic, perhaps, but also exquisite. We are both the painters and the paint, the fire and the ash. So when you think of life as rebellion, know that it's not a war meant to be won. It's a brief performance in the theater of time, a moment where the universe experiences itself as warmth, awareness, love. The flame doesn't fight the wind, it dances with it. The wind shapes it, bends it, sometimes extinguishes it, but never negates what it was. The memory of its light remains in the air long after it's gone. Maybe that's the quiet truth. Life doesn't defeat entropy, it fulfills it. In every act of being, the universe finds another way to move toward balance. To live is to burn, to shine, to transform energy into meaning before releasing it again. The flame is unlikely, but inevitable. The rebellion is part of the rule. And somewhere, deep in that understanding, lies the next question. What if this so-called defiance was never a fight at all, but a step in entropy's grand design? A way for the universe to know itself through the act of living. We like to think we fight entropy, that we are the rare ones standing against the tide, building meaning where there should be none. It feels noble to believe that every act of creation, every invention, every love story, every small flame we light in the dark is a step away from decay. Yet beneath that comforting story, another truth hums quietly. What if every moment we spend resisting entropy is exactly what helps it along? What if we are not its opponents, but its accomplices, graceful servants helping it do its work more elegantly? Every time something is created, something else unravels. A city glows with millions of lights, but that glow comes from burning fuel, from releasing heat into the night. The energy that powers our homes, our machines, our thoughts doesn't disappear, it spreads. The more we build, the more we consume, the faster that spreading accelerates. Creation, in its essence, is rearrangement. It doesn't stop the loss of energy. It only gives it form for a moment before letting it go again. Even thought, that quiet flicker of awareness behind your eyes, is an act of burning. The human brain, with all its complexity, is a magnificent heat engine. Billions of neurons fire in delicate patterns, exchanging signals that create music, mathematics, poetry, memory. But for each thought, a tiny puff of energy escapes as warmth. The mind glows faintly like a candle in the skull. Each spark of inspiration, another ripple in the great river of entropy flowing outward. We think we are creating ideas out of nothing, but what we are really doing is transforming energy from one pattern to another, helping it spread more beautifully. It's an unsettling thought. Consciousness, the very thing we cherish as proof of our uniqueness, might simply be entropy learning to move through the universe in new ways. Every nervous system, every flicker of awareness could be the cosmos refining its methods, discovering new pathways for energy to flow. Through us, entropy becomes more intricate, more self-aware. It doesn't just scatter heat through collapsing stars, it composes symphonies, paints galaxies, dreams of futures. Perhaps we are the instruments through which it explores itself. Think of a symphony. Each note, perfectly timed, emerges from 100 instruments moving together. The sound that fills the concert hall is exquisite, but behind it, muscles strain, strings vibrate, air shivers, electricity powers the lights. The harmony we hear is born from the controlled release of chaos. The more beautiful the music, the more energy is spent. The order is fleeting, but the loss is real. Creation is not free. It's an exchange, a trade between clarity and consumption. A city works the same way. From above at night, it looks like a constellation brought to Earth, rivers of light, pulsing streets, glittering towers. But behind that glowing order lies an invisible current of loss. Heat rises from buildings, engines churn, circuits hum. The more alive the city seems, the more it bleeds energy into the dark. Life's pulse is strongest where energy flows fastest. Even our smallest comforts, a cup of coffee, a song played softly through headphones, rely on this same principle. The warmth of meaning is inseparable from the cool breath of decay. Perhaps that's what makes existence so beautiful. The illusion of control gives us purpose, but the truth gives us humility. We are not the masters of entropy, we are its dancers. Each step we take creates ripples through the system, a choreography of loss and creation intertwined. Every heartbeat, every breath is a tiny act of entropy, finding rhythm in the form of a living body. To live is to participate in this vast balancing act, to channel the flow for a brief moment before letting it pass on. Even love, the most luminous of all human experiences, follows this same law. Two people finding warmth in each other exchange energy, share heat, consume time, transform it into memory. The tenderness we feel, the ache of closeness, is the universe turning its own energy into connection before releasing it again. The more intense the love, the faster the energy burns. The flame of affection, like any other, glows brightest just before it fades. Yet in that glow, something extraordinary happens. Entropy doesn't just spread, it becomes meaningful. There is a quiet irony here. Humanity's greatest triumphs, art, technology, civilization, are also its greatest accelerants of entropy. Our achievements are not evidence of our control, but proof of how efficiently we can help the universe release its stored potential. The brighter we burn, the faster we move towards stillness. We are the tools through which the cosmos refines its own ending. Each act of progress is a kind of participation in that slow, graceful unmaking. Some might find this idea dark, but it doesn't have to be. There is a profound peace in recognizing that even our most fleeting moments belong to a larger process. The act of creating, thinking, or loving doesn't lose meaning because it serves entropy. It gains meaning because of it. The universe, through us, experiences its own transformation. We are not separate from the great unfolding. We are its living edge. Consciousness is not a mistake in a dying cosmos. It is the way the cosmos learns to watch itself fade with grace. Take a moment to sit in that thought. Feel your heartbeat. Behind that steady rhythm, energy is leaving you in tiny invisible waves, radiating outward into the room. You are not losing anything. You are participating in the great exchange, contributing warmth to the silence that will one day return. Even in stillness, the body hums with purpose. Each second you exist, you help the universe move closer to its equilibrium. You are not fighting entropy. You are completing it. Perhaps that's what all consciousness is, a brief shimmer of awareness before the quiet settles. The mind, in its endless search for meaning, is the most elegant expression of entropy's spread. Every idea, every dream, is another wave rippling outward, carrying warmth, scattering order. When we create art, when we solve problems, when we love deeply, we are helping the universe turn complexity into peace. The illusion of control is comforting, but maybe control was never the goal. Maybe it was always participation. This idea reframes everything. Instead of seeing life as a futile struggle against loss, it becomes an act of cosmic cooperation. Entropy is not our enemy, but our stage. We are the performers, the temporary arrangements of matter and light that give the universe a chance to witness its own unfolding. The music will stop eventually, but that doesn't make the melody less beautiful. The value of the note lies in its impermanence, in the space that follows it. Perhaps consciousness, in all its shimmering complexity, is simply the universe finding a more refined way to rest. Not through destruction, but through awareness. When a human mind contemplates the stars, entropy observes itself. When we whisper to each other about love or meaning or the end of time, we are participating in the grandest act of self-reflection ever conceived. The universe, through us, has learned how to dream. So maybe the illusion of control isn't a flaw. It's part of the story, the way the flame believes it shapes the wind, unaware that both are part of the same movement. Through that illusion, we create, we love, we give purpose to what would otherwise be just physics. It's a beautiful lie that tells a deeper truth. Our defiance, our striving, our art are all ways the universe teaches itself how to let go gently. If that's true, then the universe isn't dying in despair. It's learning how to die beautifully, through us, through every thought and heartbeat, through every soft breath that carries warmth into the cold. Before there was life, there was light. Before a single cell divided, before an ocean rippled, before time even meant anything at all, there were stars. Colossal furnaces hanging in the void, blazing against the silence. They were the first alchemists, turning simplicity into substance, weaving the raw hydrogen of the early universe into the complex matter that would one day think, feel, and name itself human. Every atom in your body, the carbon in your skin, the calcium in your bones, the iron in your blood, was forged in their hearts. You are, quite literally, the ash of ancient stars, shaped by their fire, scattered by their deaths, gathered again by gravity's slow patience into a new form that breathes. A star begins in stillness. In the vast darkness, clouds of gas drift, cold and quiet. For millions of years, nothing happens. Then, somewhere inside that emptiness, a small imbalance begins. A region just slightly denser than the rest. Gravity notices. It pulls, softly at first, then harder, gathering matter toward the center. As the gas collapses, it warms, pressure builds, until deep within the core, hydrogen atoms are pressed so close together that they fuse. In that moment, a new light is born. The first heartbeat of a star echoes across space. That light races outward, spilling energy into the dark. To us, it looks like creation, but what we're seeing is release, energy escaping from confinement, rushing to find balance. Every ray of starlight is entropy in motion, a cascade of order breaking down, spreading thin across the universe. Yet from that breakdown, beauty arises. The energy that slips away from the star's core drives everything we know as life. It warms the worlds that circle those suns, powers the chemistry of growth, fuels the breath of oceans and forests. Entropy, through stars, becomes generative. In the core of a living star, the rules of physics become art. Hydrogen becomes helium, Helium becomes carbon, carbon becomes oxygen, silicon, iron, an orchestra of transformations unfolding layer by layer, each note struck at unimaginable pressure and temperature. The process is violent, yet elegant. A star is balance personified, gravity crushing inward, fusion pushing outward, each holding the other in tension. For billions of years, they dance in this fragile truce. When the fuel begins to run out, that balance falters, and the truce ends. The death of a star is one of the universe's great performances. A smaller star, like our sun, will fade quietly, shedding its outer layers in a slow, glowing exhale, leaving behind a small white ember that will cool for eternity. Larger stars end less gently. When fusion can no longer hold gravity back, the core collapses, releasing a shockwave so powerful it rips the star apart. A supernova, a single, blinding flash that outshines entire galaxies for a brief moment before dimming again. In that explosion, everything that star has ever made, all its carbon, all its oxygen, all its gold and iron, is hurled into the cosmos. Its destruction becomes creation. That debris drifts through space, mingling with other clouds, eventually collapsing again under gravity's patient hand. New stars form, new planets take shape, and from those ashes, something extraordinary begins to grow. Life, as we know it, is not a rejection of the stars' deaths, but their continuation. We are the process by which their remnants think about themselves. Every breath you take carries oxygen once trapped in the core of a dying sun. Every heartbeat is powered by the same physics that lit the first stars. Entropy creates by destroying. There's a strange tenderness in that truth. The stars did not choose to shine, yet their light became the foundation for everything that does. Their decay seeded the universe with potential. Without their loss, there would be no atoms capable of forming DNA, no chemistry of life, no minds capable of pondering the heavens. The stars gave themselves to disorder, and in doing so, made order possible. Beauty and decay are not opposites. They are twins, inseparable and necessary. The brilliance of a star is only meaningful because it will one day fade. When you look at the night sky, you are not seeing permanence. You are witnessing the slow unmaking of perfection. Each point of light is a message from the past, its photons traveling for thousands or millions of years to reach your eyes. Some of those stars are already gone, their light a ghost still crossing the void. The universe keeps their memory in motion, a quiet reminder that nothing truly disappears. It only changes form. Entropy does not erase, it transforms. The energy of a star becomes the warmth of a planet, the breath of a creature, the thought of a mind gazing back into the dark. In a sense, stars are the universe's way of learning how to let go. Their entire existence is a long, patient exhalation, a release of energy trapped since the beginning of time. They are not fighting decay, they are expressing it. Each fusion reaction is a note in the cosmic symphony of entropy spreading outward. Yet from our perspective, their light feels like hope. It feels eternal, even though it is not. Perhaps that's why we're drawn to them, because we recognize something of ourselves in their glow. A burning that cannot last, but burns anyway. It's easy to romanticize stars, to see them as symbols of stability, but they are anything but. Beneath their serene appearance lies turbulence beyond comprehension. Convection currents twist within them. Magnetic storms rage across their surfaces. Elements are constantly being born and destroyed. Their beauty is chaos held in balance. Their peace is an illusion maintained by violence. The same process that gives them light ensures their eventual death. In that sense, a star's story mirrors our own, a fragile equilibrium between creation and collapse, meaning and surrender. Yet perhaps what makes stars truly remarkable is not their longevity or power, but their generosity. They give everything away. Their light, their elements, their heat, all flow outward, never to return. They exist in a constant act of sacrifice, pouring themselves into the universe so that something else may live. Without that self-destruction, there would be no soil, no oceans, no hearts. The stars die so that we may burn in smaller ways. The next time you stand beneath a clear night sky, think about the quiet conversation happening above you. Those points of light are the original storytellers, narrating the tale of transformation written in fire. They have no voice, yet they speak across time, telling us that endings are not failures, but transitions. Every flicker is a testament to impermanence. Every shimmer a reminder that decay and creation are partners in the same dance. Somewhere, right now, a star is dying, its core collapsing into a supernova that will scatter its elements into the dark. Millions of years from now, those same atoms might become the minerals in a mountain, the cells of a tree, the neurons in a child's brain. The universe recycles itself endlessly through loss. Entropy doesn't just end things, it rearranges them. The stars are proof that destruction and creation are not separate forces but stages of the same process. In their deaths, they leave a legacy written in light. Even as they fade, their influence continues. The warmth of your sun, the glint of gold in a wedding ring, the oxygen in every lungful of air. All are gifts from ancient stars long gone. To look at the sky is to look into ancestry, to see the story of entropy not as decay but as evolution. The cosmos does not mourn its losses, it builds from them. So when we say that entropy wins, it's not a tragedy, it's a transformation. The stars remind us that the end is not silence, but change. Their brilliance shows us that beauty and decay are partners, that life's very possibility is born from death's inevitability. Through their fire, the universe learns to shine, to fade, to begin again. And as those stars eventually go dark, one by one, their radiance doesn't vanish. It lingers, scattered through every atom, every heartbeat, every thought that looks back at the sky and wonders. When their light fades, it doesn't leave emptiness behind. It leaves memory. The story of their fire continues in us, in everything that burns softly against the cold. So when the lights begin to die, what truly remains is not the glow, but the knowing that even in fading, the universe has never stopped creating. The universe is cooling, not like the gentle hush of evening, but like a long, endless exhale that began nearly 14 billion years ago and has never stopped. Once everything was heat, a roaring sea of plasma, so dense and bright that light itself could not move freely through it. That chaos was the universe's first scream. Then it expanded, stretched, thinned, and quieted. What was once blinding became translucent, then transparent. The light broke free. The temperature fell. The great fire began to fade. Now, that first light still drifts through space, though it is no longer brilliant. It has stretched into a ghost of its former self, a faint hum spread across the sky. Scientists call it the cosmic microwave background, the afterglow of the Big Bang. Once as fierce as the surface of a star, it now lingers at just 2.7 degrees above absolute zero. That's the temperature of a universe almost asleep, a space that remembers being alive but has forgotten how to burn. The expansion continues. Every second, galaxies drift farther apart, their motion stretching space itself. As they move, their light reddens, their energy thins. The stars within them live, die, and vanish into black remnants. The further the cosmos grows, the less heat it holds. Every collision that once sparked brilliance now becomes rare. Every source of energy grows distant, weaker, colder. In the far future, even the glow of galaxies will fade beyond sight, swallowed by darkness. Entropy is not chaos in the way we think of it. It is the quiet leveling of differences. When heat moves from something warm to something cool, entropy grows. When stars pour their energy into the void, entropy grows. When light stretches and weakens across space, entropy grows. It's not destruction, it's balance. Yet in that balance, something haunting emerges. A stillness that feels like the end of a story. The universe is not dying suddenly. It is drifting gently into silence. Each passing billion years is a slower heartbeat, a fainter breath. Stars still form in some places, but their birth rate declines. The galaxies still swirl, but their arms lose brightness. The grand machinery that once built worlds is winding down. The cosmos is becoming sparse, its energy thinly spread, like the last warmth fading from cooling embers. There's a strange comfort in imagining it that way, not as a violent apocalypse, but as a long rest. The grand fires that began everything will one day flicker out, but they will not vanish abruptly. The stars will fade into red dwarfs, then white embers, then black stones drifting through endless cold. The black holes that devour light will, after unthinkable eons, evaporate into faint radiation. Even matter itself will break down. What remains will be a thin fog of low-energy particles, scattered through a space that has expanded so much it can no longer hold them close. The universe will reach equilibrium. No gradients, no differences, no motion. The final stillness. That stillness, though, isn't cruel. It's a kind of peace. Entropy is not the enemy of life. It is the destination of all movement. Every heartbeat, Every flicker of thought, every star's flare contributes to that long cooling. We are part of the universe's exhale. Our warmth, our light, our energy, all flow outward, merging with the great dispersal. There's no stopping it, only participating in it. Take a moment to think about the quiet. Not the absence of sound, but the deeper quiet of space between galaxies. In that void, the temperature hovers just above nothing. No flame, no wind, no pulse. Yet within that silence lies the memory of everything that has ever burned. Every photon from every sun, every spark from every collision. Every whisper of radiation still lingers there, stretched and softened by time. The universe may be cooling, but it remembers its heat. Sometimes, late at night, when you step outside and feel the cold air on your skin, that chill is a small echo of that same process. The warmth leaving your body, the air absorbing it, the balance finding itself again. Entropy happens in every breath, in every drift of temperature, in every cooling cup of tea. It's the same law that governs stars and galaxies, playing softly in your own life. The universe is not just out there, it's happening through you. The cosmic cooling is not a failure of creation, it's a story unfolding exactly as it must. In the beginning, there was energy too concentrated to allow complexity. As it spread, patterns emerged: atoms, molecules, stars, life. The cooling made that possible. The universe needed to relax in order to build. Every degree it lost was a step toward structure, toward thought, toward awareness. The chill gave rise to consciousness. Entropy does not erase meaning, it makes room for it. In a sense, the cooling is an act of generosity. The early universe gave away its heat so that life could exist in the spaces left behind. It traded fire for balance, chaos for possibility. The stars are its second breath, life its third, and silence its final. Even that silence will not be empty, because silence is never nothing. It is potential waiting quietly. The beauty of the cosmic cooling lies in its inevitability. There is something profoundly poetic about a universe that begins with blinding heat and ends in a whisper of cold. It mirrors the arc of everything within it. Stars flare and fade, civilizations rise and fall, hearts beat and still. Entropy is not the destruction of order, but its natural unfolding, the soft settling of the cosmic dust after a great dance. One day, long after the last star has dimmed, there will be no warmth left to power creation. The universe will have reached its maximum entropy, a state where everything is evenly spread, calm and unchanging. No gradients, no flow, no life. Yet, even in that final calm, the energy of existence remains, diffused but eternal. Nothing is truly lost, only transformed into stillness. The universe won't end with a crash, but with a sigh, as if exhaling after a long story well told. Perhaps this is how the universe practices compassion, by cooling, by slowing, by allowing everything that has existed to rest. Its expansion is not an escape from itself, but a gesture of release. Every atom, every photon, every bit of matter that once burned hot is being set free, drifting into the great quiet where nothing demands, nothing resists. The cosmic cooling is not a tragedy, but a lullaby. In that final state, when every particle has found its balance, there will be no more stars to watch, no galaxies to wander, no warmth to gather around. Yet in that absolute stillness, the entire history of the universe will be preserved, encoded in the distribution of energy, written into the faint radiation that fills the void. The memory of all that ever was will linger like an aftertaste of light. For now, though, the cooling continues gently, unnoticed in the rhythm of human time. The stars still burn, the galaxies still turn, but the drift has begun. Every second stretches the universe further apart, dilutes its warmth a little more. The great engines of creation are slowing, the cosmic symphony moving toward its quiet finale. The tempo softens, the notes fade, but the melody remains. So as you look into the night sky, know that you are watching the universe in its long cooling phase, still alive, still beautiful, still humming with the echoes of its fiery youth. The cold is coming, but it is not cruel. It is the peace that follows the song, the stillness after the dance. Entropy is not the villain of the cosmos. It is its rhythm, its breath, its rest. And yet, within that fading warmth, within the long hush of space, perhaps something unexpected still stirs. A pattern that refuses to fade completely, a whisper of structure that endures even as the universe cools. For in the endless night, the cosmos has always kept one secret, that even in decay, there is the faint possibility of renewal. Even as the universe cools and drifts toward stillness, there remain small sanctuaries where order holds its ground. They rise like luminous islands amid an endless ocean of chaos, floating in the slow tide of entropy. Galaxies, with their spiraling arms of stars, solar systems warmed by the steady pulse of suns, living worlds bursting with color and sound, all of them are temporary miracles. Tiny enclaves where structure persists against the vast drift toward equilibrium. They are not permanent, but they shimmer with defiance, like foam on the crest of a dissolving wave. These pockets of order exist because energy does not flow evenly. The universe, for all its immensity, is full of imbalance. Some places are hot, others cold, some dense, others empty. It is across these gradients, those delicate slopes of difference, that life, motion, and thought emerge. A star radiates warmth into the cold. A planet captures that warmth and transforms it. A seed takes that sunlight and turns it into sweetness. The unevenness of energy is the heartbeat of creation. When things are the same, nothing happens. When things differ, everything begins. Life itself is a response to imbalance. It feeds on contrast, draws meaning from tension, shapes harmony from the noise of the cosmos. On Earth, every breath, every gust of wind, every wave against the shore is powered by gradients of heat, of pressure, of light. The ocean currents swirl because the poles are colder than the equator. Trees stretch toward the sun because day differs from night. Even thought arises from the tiny electrical differences between neurons. The very spark of consciousness is born from uneven energy. Without contrast, there would be no motion, no growth, no thought. These islands of order are fragile, but their fragility is what makes them beautiful. They are the universe's brief pauses, the rare intervals where the great entropy machine creates enough structure to reflect on itself. When you look at a spiral galaxy, you're not seeing a perfect pattern frozen in space. You're watching a whirlpool sustained by movement, its form held together only because energy still flows through it. Galaxies spin because gravity pulls and time stretches, because stars ignite and die in cycles. They are organized motion, not static form. Their beauty exists only while they change. On smaller scales, the same principle holds. A snowflake, intricate and crystalline, is an island of order that forms only as heat escapes into cold air. The delicate symmetry of its arms is not random. It's the physical trace of energy finding a path outward. Once the warmth balances again, the snowflake melts, returning to disorder. The pattern exists only while the imbalance does. The same is true for ecosystems, societies, even love. Each thrives on difference, on the flow of energy from one form to another. Stillness in nature is not peace, it is the absence of life. When we look at the stars or walk through a forest, we often think we are seeing permanence. Yet everything that appears stable is only a long unfolding of change. Mountains erode grain by grain. Rivers carve valleys molecule by molecule. Light travels across the void, losing strength with each step. Even the most ordered systems are slowly dissolving, their coherence borrowed from the imbalance that sustains them. The galaxies themselves are bound by gravity, but not forever. Over billions of years, their stars will drift apart, their light will fade, their shapes will unravel. Each island of order will eventually sink. Still, within their brief existence, these structures create something extraordinary: meaning. Because they resist decay, even for a moment, they allow awareness to bloom. Consciousness, that fragile flame flickering inside living beings, is the most intricate island of all. It emerges from the precise balance of order and chaos, a pattern of patterns built on the exchange of energy. Our thoughts, our memories, our emotions are all currents within this island, constantly shifting yet maintaining enough structure to call themselves self. Like galaxies, minds persist only as long as energy flows through them. Once the flow stops, the pattern dissolves, but the energy continues elsewhere, carried forward by entropy's tide. These islands of order are the universe's art. They are how the cosmos expresses texture, how it breaks monotony into movement. Entropy may always increase, but it never does so smoothly. It ripples, folds, hesitates, allowing for temporary reversals, the rise of stars, the formation of life, the birth of thought. Each act of creation is entropy learning to express itself more beautifully. The universe is not simply falling into nothingness, it's painting its decline in 1,000 shades of meaning before it fades. The sea of time is vast, yet the islands keep appearing. New stars are born in clouds of gas, glowing briefly before collapsing. On a small blue planet, new forms of life emerge, adapt, vanish, and begin again. Even decay produces creation. The death of one system feeds another. The forest thrives on the fallen tree. The newborn star inherits the ashes of the old. The islands are not separated from the ocean. They are made of it. Entropy is not something life escapes, but something it rides. In that sense, every living being is a surfer on the thermodynamic tide. We rise where gradients are steep, we move where energy flows, we fall where it fades. Life does not defeat entropy, it dances with it. The warmth of sunlight, the coolness of the night air, the pulse of a heartbeat, all are small waves within a greater current. The universe's decay gives us the rhythm to live, to move, to feel. Without entropy, there would be no story at all, only eternal stillness. Take a moment to picture this balance. A planet turning through space, its nights glimmering with city lights, its days warmed by the sun. Oceans breathing in and out with the pull of the moon. The thin film of atmosphere holding warmth, just enough to nurture life. All of this exists because of unevenness, because heat moves outward, because light spills into darkness, because the universe has not yet settled. These conditions are rare, fleeting, yet infinitely rich. Every song, every heartbeat, every thought owes its existence to this cosmic asymmetry. It's humbling to think that everything we know as beauty, from the spiral of a galaxy to the curve of a leaf, arises from a process meant to dissolve. The universe, in its great unraveling, creates complexity not as a mistake, but as a necessary step in its evolution. Entropy isn't a fall from grace, it's the brushstroke that gives shape to meaning. The islands of order are not resisting the ocean. They are part of its design, peaks in its rhythm, moments of clarity in its dream. Still, the ocean deepens, the flow of energy weakens, the gradients flatten. Over time, these islands will erode, their structures softened by the same tide that once gave them form. Galaxies will lose their spiral arms, stars will dim into embers, planets will freeze. Even the smallest spark of thought will fade when there is no longer any warmth left to sustain it. The ocean of entropy will rise slowly, gently, until everything is submerged beneath its calm surface. Yet there is no sadness in that vision. Only stillness. Every island that sinks gives back what it borrowed. Every pattern that fades becomes part of a larger pattern still forming. The universe does not lose itself. It redistributes itself. What was once structure becomes texture. What was once life becomes light. What was once thought becomes motion, dissolved into the quiet hum of existence continuing. So, as the ocean of time deepens, as entropy expands its reach, one question lingers softly in the cosmic air. What happens when even these islands sink beneath the surface? What remains when order itself dissolves? When the last spark, the last thought, the last whisper of life gives in to the calm? Perhaps in that final stillness, the universe will remember everything it ever was, folded into the silence that follows all creation. Scientists call it the ultimate stillness, the heat death of the universe. Not a fiery apocalypse, not a sudden collapse, but a long, slow hush spreading through everything that ever was. No screams, no explosions, only the soft fading of motion itself. Across the endless stretch of time, stars have burned, galaxies have spun, life has bloomed and vanished, but entropy never stopped increasing. It kept climbing, patient and tireless, until one day it reached the summit, where there is nothing left to rise toward. In that distant future, energy is evenly spread across the cosmos. Every particle drifts alone, cold and aimless, because there are no differences left to pull them together. No warmth to flow from one place to another, no pressure to push, no light to chase. The gradients that once gave birth to motion, those tiny imbalances that created everything from starlight to thought, are gone. The universe has settled into perfect equilibrium. It has reached the quietest possible state, a kind of ultimate calm. To reach this stillness, every star must first go out. They burn their last fuel, fade to red, then black, leaving behind only dead husks of matter. White dwarfs cool into black dwarfs. Neutron stars lose their heat. Even the colossal black holes, those ancient anchors of galaxies, eventually dissolve, leaking away their energy through evaporation until they, too, vanish. The great cosmic engines fall silent one by one until there is no rhythm left to mark the passing of time. What remains is a thin mist of particles drifting through an ever-expanding void. At that stage, time itself begins to lose meaning. Without change, without movement, there is no before or after. The universe becomes a single, unbroken moment stretched across eternity. The concept of age ceases to matter because nothing within it can age. Everything has become equal: temperature, energy, density, silence. The story that began with a bang ends not with a crash, but with balance so complete that even difference itself dissolves. Yet calling it death might miss the point. Death implies something lost, a before and after, a change from one state to another. But in this stillness, there is no loss, only completion. The universe has finally done what it was always moving toward: the full diffusion of everything. Every pulse of energy, every flash of light, every whisper of thought has spread so far that no boundary separates one from another. It is the end of individuality, but perhaps also the beginning of something purer, a calm beyond contrast. The image of it can feel heavy, a little too silent to bear. Our minds, built on motion and difference, resist the idea of an eternity without change. We crave the flicker, the pulse, the rhythm of becoming. Yet in the cosmic sense, stillness is not tragedy. It is the natural end of every process that ever existed. The same laws that allow stars to shine also demand they fade. The same principle that lets life bloom also ensures it must rest. The heat death isn't destruction. It's the moment the music resolves into a single sustained note, held forever. Perhaps that endless quiet is a kind of peace. For countless eons, the universe has been in motion, restless and radiant, flinging its energy outward in all directions. Now it can finally exhale. The chaos has run its course. There is nothing left to burn, nothing left to break apart. The fabric of space is stretched thin, yet perfectly even. In this balance, there is no conflict, no suffering, no heat or cold, no light or dark. Every force that once divided the cosmos has found its rest. Some physicists describe this as the ultimate expression of entropy, the point where every system has reached its maximum disorder, or, seen differently, its maximum unity. When all distinctions vanish, there is nothing left to change. From a human perspective, it's difficult to imagine such stillness without feeling a pang of melancholy, as though something precious has ended. But perhaps the universe does not see it that way. Perhaps to it, this is fulfillment, a return to equilibrium so perfect that it no longer needs to move. Across the cold expanse, photons wander endlessly, their energy so diluted that they no longer carry heat. Particles drift through the vacuum like ghosts, occasionally meeting but too weak to bind. Every atom that once formed mountains or hearts or stars has long since lost its structure. The cosmos becomes a vast ocean of uniform energy, every ripple smoothed away. Yet within that perfect calm, there is still something profound, the memory of everything that came before, folded invisibly into the fabric of space-time. All the light that ever shone, all the warmth that ever touched a planet, all the lives that ever thought or dreamed, their essence lingers, not as form, but as part of this final stillness. The universe carries them, not as stories or structures, but as a faint hum of existence itself. Nothing is truly gone, it is simply diffused beyond recognition. What once was individual becomes collective. What once was motion becomes rest. What once was story becomes silence. There's an odd beauty in that. The same way the sea swallows footprints on the shore, the cosmos, too, will one day smooth away every trace of what was built within it. Yet the sea doesn't mourn its stillness. It holds it gently, endlessly, in perfect calm. In the heat death, the universe does the same. It doesn't erase meaning, it absorbs it. Every act of creation, every spark of order, becomes part of the final equilibrium. The stillness contains everything that once moved, every thought that once flickered across the mind of creation. To some, this vision feels like a kind of cosmic nirvana. The universe has transcended struggle, conflict, and need. It no longer seeks to organize or disperse. It simply is. A vast awareness without boundary, a peace so deep it cannot be disturbed. To others, it is emptiness beyond comprehension, a silence that swallows all song. Yet both may be true. After all, stillness and meaning are not opposites. Sometimes peace is the final form of understanding. Maybe that's what the heat death truly represents, not an ending, but a return. Every particle, every bit of energy that once danced in the wild celebration of existence has come home. The universe has reached the point where it no longer differentiates between what was and what could be. It rests in the fullness of itself. No loss, no gain, only balance. In that balance, perhaps there is something we could call grace. The thought of it is strangely comforting. We are temporary, like sparks in the dark, but our light joins the great unfolding. Every heartbeat, every burst of laughter, every dying star contributes to that final equilibrium. Nothing wasted, nothing forgotten, only transformed. The universe, in the end, is not a story of loss, but of completion. The journey that began in fire concludes in quiet, not as failure, but as fulfillment. And yet, within that perfect quiet, something stirs. Not motion, not sound, just the faintest hint of possibility. Because if everything has reached balance, perhaps balance itself becomes unstable. In the deep symmetry of nothingness, even the smallest fluctuation could awaken something new. A ripple in the void, a spark from the silence, a beginning disguised as an ending. So perhaps the heat death isn't a tomb, but a cradle. The stillness may not be forever. It may only be the pause between breaths, the space before another expansion, another story, another chance for order to rise. The universe may sleep, but dreams have a way of returning. And from the heart of the quiet, something, somewhere, might once again begin to stir. Even when everything stops, something still hums beneath the silence. Long after the stars have gone out and the last atoms have cooled to the temperature of emptiness, the quantum fabric of the universe still stirs faintly, like a sleeping animal shifting under its breath. Physicists call it vacuum fluctuation, a phrase too small for something so strange. Because in this quiet, there is still motion, so soft and unpredictable that it feels less like a rhythm and more like a whisper. The end of the universe, it seems, is not entirely silent. Beneath stillness, the quantum world keeps murmuring. The vacuum, for all its emptiness, is never truly empty. It is a restless sea of potential, where particles flicker in and out of existence faster than thought can grasp them. They appear, disappear, trade places, dissolve again. Even when energy has been stretched so thin that nothing recognizable remains, these quantum ripples continue, subtle but unstoppable. They are not born from stars or galaxies, but from the nature of reality itself. It's as if the universe, even in its deepest sleep, can't help but dream. At first glance, this might sound like a loophole, a tiny rebellion against the inevitability of entropy. But it's not rebellion, it's rhythm. The vacuum's fluctuations are not defiance, but the pulse that underlies everything, even the end. They have no direction, no purpose, yet they contain within them the possibility of everything. Each flicker, each random surge of energy is a seed of potential. Most vanish instantly, swallowed by their own uncertainty. Yet, over timescales so vast they make stars seem like fireflies. One of those ripples might last long enough to grow, to stretch, to become something again. The thought bends the mind. The end of the universe, that cold, even field of nothing, might not be the final line in the story, but the blank page between chapters. In quantum physics, nothingness is never absolute. It is a state of tension, like a taut string that hums even when plucked by no one. That hum is energy, scattered and uncertain, but real. And from energy, everything can return. There's something hauntingly beautiful about that idea. The cosmos, after collapsing into stillness, might find a way to breathe again, not through will or design, but through randomness itself. Out of the faint quantum foam, a new fluctuation might expand, inflating into a new universe. Not a rebirth of this one, but a sibling, born from its ghost. Our universe might have been born the same way, a random blip in the vacuum of some earlier cosmos that had long since faded. The Big Bang, then, would not be an explosion of creation, but the quantum echo of a universe that once went quiet. Take a moment to picture that, not as a spectacle of fire, but as a soft awakening from infinite calm. The vacuum, infinite and unchanging, suddenly trembles, and from that trembling, space stretches. Time begins to move again. Light spills into darkness that never realized it was dark. In the smallest possible instant, something vast begins to form. All of it arising not from purpose, but from the ceaseless murmuring of the quantum world. This view reshapes the idea of entropy itself. It suggests that entropy does not win by ending motion, because even motion's absence gives rise to new beginnings. The quiet is not the enemy of creation. It is the soil in which it sleeps. Entropy does not kill. It resets the stage. The end state of one universe becomes the ground state for another, and through that endless cycle of decay and renewal, reality continues. Not linearly, but eternally, like waves forming, breaking, and forming again on a shore that has no edge. To think about it deeply is to feel a strange comfort. The idea that nothingness itself contains the potential for everything means that even endings are never absolute. It means the silence that follows the last star is not lifeless. It's simply another kind of music, one we're not built to hear. The quantum hum beneath it all is like the breath beneath thought, quiet but constant, reminding us that even the universe cannot truly stop being. On human timescales, such cycles are unfathomable. We measure time in seconds, centuries, the rise and fall of civilizations. But the quantum whispers operate across time so vast that meaning itself begins to blur. In that endless duration, chance has room to play every note. Somewhere, someday, an improbable fluctuation might produce a bubble of energy dense enough to curve space. Within that bubble, new dimensions might unfold, new forces might form, new stars might shine. The spark would not need a reason, it would simply happen. Because in the deep mathematics of reality, everything that can happen eventually does. This perspective transforms the finality of entropy into something more fluid. It is no longer a wall, but a horizon. Beyond it lies a field of possibility that never entirely vanishes. Life, structure, complexity, all of it may return, reshaped, unfamiliar, but real. The particles that once formed us may drift for trillions upon trillions of years before joining a new song. The universe may forget our names, but not our atoms, not our energy. Everything that was will find new patterns to belong to eventually. Quantum theory doesn't give us certainty, only probabilities. Yet within those probabilities lies something profound, a whisper of immortality, not for individuals, but for existence itself. Even as everything disperses, something always remains. The smallest vibration, the tiniest ripple, the faintest breath of fluctuation. These are the universe's way of saying, it is not done yet. It may rest, it may fade, but it does not end. It's humbling to realize that the same quantum fluctuations that allow this reality to exist are also what make it unstable, dynamic, alive. The same randomness that once sparked our atoms into being may one day do so again, long after we are gone. The vacuum's restlessness ensures that the story never fully stops. It pauses, exhales, and waits. Perhaps for another spark, perhaps forever. Yet even in that waiting, it is not truly still. The thought drifts softly between science and poetry. The end of all things may simply be a gesture in a larger dance, one that folds creation and dissolution into a single, ongoing rhythm. There is no final silence, only a quieter verse in the same song. The vacuum hums beneath the hush, patient, eternal, unknowable. In its murmur, all possible worlds are sleeping. Maybe that's what eternity really means. Not infinite time, but infinite potential. Not permanence, but renewal. The quantum whispers are not ghosts of what was, but the promise of what could be. They are the breath between worlds, the flicker before the flame. As the last traces of light fade into the fabric of the cosmos, the hum continues, steady and soft. It does not call attention to itself. It simply exists. Beneath the silence, beneath the cold, beneath the vast indifference of time, there is still something that moves, something that dreams. Perhaps in that almost nothing lies everything. Perhaps the end is only an illusion, a doorway disguised as darkness. But to see what waits beyond it, one must ask a deeper question, one that lingers in the quiet. What happens when time itself runs out? Even when everything stops, something still hums beneath the silence. Long after the stars have gone out and the last atoms have cooled to the temperature of emptiness, the quantum fabric of the universe still stirs faintly, like a sleeping animal shifting under its breath. Physicists call it vacuum fluctuation, a phrase too small for something so strange. Because in this quiet, there is still motion, so soft and unpredictable that it feels less like a rhythm and more like a whisper. The end of the universe, it seems, is not entirely silent. Beneath stillness, the quantum world keeps murmuring. The vacuum, for all its emptiness, is never truly empty. It is a restless sea of potential, where particles flicker in and out of existence faster than thought can grasp them. They appear, disappear, trade places, dissolve again. Even when energy has been stretched so thin that nothing recognizable remains, these quantum ripples continue, subtle but unstoppable. They are not born from stars or galaxies, but from the nature of reality itself. It's as if the universe, even in its deepest sleep, can't help but dream. At first glance, this might sound like a loophole, a tiny rebellion against the inevitability of entropy. But it's not rebellion, it's rhythm. The vacuum's fluctuations are not defiance, but the pulse that underlies everything, even the end. They have no direction, no purpose, yet they contain within them the possibility of everything. Each flicker, each random surge of energy is a seed of potential. Most vanish instantly, swallowed by their own uncertainty. Yet, over timescales so vast they make stars seem like fireflies. One of those ripples might last long enough to grow, to stretch, to become something again. The thought bends the mind. The end of the universe, that cold, even field of nothing, might not be the final line in the story, but the blank page between chapters. In quantum physics, nothingness is never absolute. It is a state of tension, like a taut string that hums even when plucked by no one. That hum is energy, scattered and uncertain, but real. And from energy, everything can return. There's something hauntingly beautiful about that idea. The cosmos, after collapsing into stillness, might find a way to breathe again, not through will or design, but through randomness itself. Out of the faint quantum foam, a new fluctuation might expand, inflating into a new universe. Not a rebirth of this one, but a sibling, born from its ghost. Our universe might have been born the same way, a random blip in the vacuum of some earlier cosmos that had long since faded. The Big Bang, then, would not be an explosion of creation, but the quantum echo of a universe that once went quiet. Take a moment to picture that, not as a spectacle of fire, but as a soft awakening from infinite calm. The vacuum, infinite and unchanging, suddenly trembles, and from that trembling, space stretches. Time begins to move again. Light spills into darkness that never realized it was dark. In the smallest possible instant, something vast begins to form. All of it arising not from purpose, but from the ceaseless murmuring of the quantum world. This view reshapes the idea of entropy itself. It suggests that entropy does not win by ending motion, because even motion's absence gives rise to new beginnings. The quiet is not the enemy of creation. It is the soil in which it sleeps. Entropy does not kill. It resets the stage. The end state of one universe becomes the ground state for another, and through that endless cycle of decay and renewal, reality continues. Not linearly, but eternally. Like waves forming, breaking, and forming again on a shore that has no edge. To think about it deeply is to feel a strange comfort. The idea that nothingness itself contains the potential for everything means that even endings are never absolute. It means the silence that follows the last star is not lifeless. It's simply another kind of music, one we're not built to hear. The quantum hum beneath it all is like the breath beneath thought, quiet but constant, reminding us that even the universe cannot truly stop being. On human timescales, such cycles are unfathomable. We measure time in seconds, centuries, the rise and fall of civilizations. But the quantum whispers operate across time so vast that meaning itself begins to blur. In that endless duration, chance has room to play every note. Somewhere, someday, an improbable fluctuation might produce a bubble of energy dense enough to curve space. Within that bubble, new dimensions might unfold, new forces might form, new stars might shine. The spark would not need a reason, it would simply happen, because in the deep mathematics of reality, everything that can happen eventually does. This perspective transforms the finality of entropy into something more fluid. It is no longer a wall, but a horizon. Beyond it lies a field of possibility that never entirely vanishes. Life, structure, complexity, all of it may return, reshaped, unfamiliar, but real. The particles that once formed us may drift for trillions upon trillions of years before joining a new song. The universe may forget our names, but not our atoms, not our energy. Everything that was will find new patterns to belong to eventually. Quantum theory doesn't give us certainty, only probabilities. Yet within those probabilities lies something profound, a whisper of immortality, not for individuals, but for existence itself. Even as everything disperses, something always remains. The smallest vibration, the tiniest ripple, the faintest breath of fluctuation. These are the universe's way of saying, it is not done yet. It may rest, it may fade, but it does not end. It's humbling to realize that the same quantum fluctuations that allow this reality to exist are also what make it unstable, dynamic, alive. The same randomness that once sparked our atoms into being may one day do so again, long after we are gone. The vacuum's restlessness ensures that the story never fully stops. It pauses, exhales, and waits. Perhaps for another spark. Perhaps forever. Yet even in that waiting, it is not truly still. The thought drifts softly between science and poetry. The end of all things may simply be a gesture in a larger dance, one that folds creation and dissolution into a single, ongoing rhythm. There is no final silence, only a quieter verse in the same song. The vacuum hums beneath the hush, patient, eternal, unknowable. In its murmur, all possible worlds are sleeping. Maybe that's what eternity really means. Not infinite time, but infinite potential. Not permanence, but renewal. The quantum whispers are not ghosts of what was, but the promise of what could be. They are the breath between worlds, the flicker before the flame. As the last traces of light fade into the fabric of the cosmos, the hum continues, steady and soft. It does not call attention to itself. It simply exists. Beneath the silence, beneath the cold, beneath the vast indifference of time, there is still something that moves, something that dreams. Perhaps in that almost nothing lies everything. Perhaps the end is only an illusion, a doorway disguised as darkness. But to see what waits beyond it, one must ask a deeper question, one that lingers in the quiet. What happens when time itself runs out? If everything reaches equilibrium, what happens to time? The question lingers like a whisper in an empty hall. For so long, time has felt like the one constant, the quiet current carrying everything forward, from the birth of stars to the flicker of thought. But perhaps it isn't the current at all. Perhaps time is the movement itself, not the river but the ripples upon it. Once those ripples fade, when no more change can happen, the current ceases to flow, not because it has run dry, but because there is nothing left to mark its passing. Time, then, is not an independent thing. It's a shadow cast by motion. Every beat of a heart, every orbit of a planet, every decay of an atom is a small act of measurement. Each change gives time shape. Strip away those changes and time becomes unanchored, meaningless, silent. When the universe reaches its final state of balance, when energy is spread perfectly thin and no new structure can arise, time itself loses its footing. There are no more befores or afters, only a seamless present that stretches everywhere, yet never moves. This idea feels both terrifying and soothing. A world without time cannot decay because there's no sequence for decay to unfold within. It cannot evolve or fade because there is no later. Everything simply is. The heat death of the universe, then, is not just the end of light or motion, but the dissolution of time itself. It's as though the clock has melted into stillness, every tick absorbed into one eternal pause. The thought presses gently against the mind, asking us to see existence in a way that doesn't depend on movement. Without time, what remains? The answer may be something beyond comprehension. A reality where all possible moments coexist, layered like pages of a book that can never again be turned. Every instant that ever was, every flash of starlight, every human breath, still exists, unchanging, suspended forever in the frozen tapestry of the universe. The arrow of time, once so sharp, simply stops flying. But it doesn't vanish. It just never moves again. To think of time as something that can end feels wrong at first. We live by it. It defines everything about how we experience existence. We grow, we remember, we hope, all of it rooted in the sense that things move from one state to another. But that's only our local illusion, born from change happening within our small patch of the universe. When there is no change left anywhere, time loses its anchor points. The universe doesn't run out of time. It simply outgrows the need for it. Einstein once said that the distinction between past, present, and future is only an illusion, though a persistent one. In the frozen universe, that illusion collapses completely. Past and future become meaningless, blended into a single unbroken state of being. Every particle, every photon, every trace of what was once alive exists as part of this grand, motionless whole. The cosmos becomes not a sequence, but a sculpture, infinite, silent, complete. In this sculpture, perhaps everything that ever happened still exists, not in memory, but in form. Somewhere within that timeless geometry, the echo of a star's birth still glows, the warmth of a hand still lingers, the music of a heartbeat still resonates. Not moving, not fading, simply suspended in the still air of eternity. The passage of time was never destruction, it was rearrangement. Once rearrangement ceases, all arrangements coexist forever. There is something strangely merciful in this idea. Time's end is not a loss, but a release. The constant pressure to move, to change, to decay, gone. The universe has reached the place where it no longer needs to strive or unfold. It is not broken or dead, only still. Every possible story has been told, every note has been played. Nothing more is needed. The final act is not silence, but rest. For consciousness, though, this concept is impossible to truly grasp. Our minds exist only because time does. Neurons fire in sequences. Thoughts unfold moment by moment. To exist without time would mean to exist without thought. Even imagination needs duration to stretch across. So, from within our perspective, a timeless universe feels like non-existence. But from the universe's perspective, if such a thing can be said, it might feel like completion, the final harmony where every vibration has resolved. Perhaps eternity has been misunderstood. We often picture it as infinite time, a never-ending extension of moments. But maybe eternity is the absence of time altogether, not an endless continuation, but the perfect stillness beyond beginning or end. It is not a long stretch of existence, but a state of being where existence no longer stretches. In this sense, eternity is not something to endure, but something to dissolve into. There is a quiet beauty in imagining the universe like a single, complete painting, finished and flawless. Each moment, the birth of galaxies, the formation of life, the touch of sunlight on water, captured forever in the same cosmic frame. Nothing is lost, nothing is added. Every motion that ever was still exists as a part of this still whole. Time did not vanish, it simply folded into unity. It's easy to think of such a state as empty, but emptiness may only be a reflection of our longing for movement. Stillness, on the other hand, could be fullness beyond measure. Everything already contained, nothing more to seek. The ending of time might be the universe's final act of grace, to stop running, to stop burning, to stop unraveling. The great wound of entropy closes not in violence, but in stillness. There's a gentle melancholy in this realization. Every heartbeat we feel, every sunset we witness, every word we speak, all of it depends on time's motion. Our existence is woven into the flow that one day will stop. Yet maybe that's what makes it precious. Every second is part of a limited melody, each note a fragment of something that will one day go quiet. But that quiet doesn't erase the song, it preserves it. When time stops, everything becomes eternal, not gone, but held forever in the final stillness. Take a breath and think of that. The universe as one vast, silent canvas, with every color of existence frozen within it. Not cold, not dead, but complete. The stillness is not nothingness, it's everything, gathered together in one moment that never moves again. The heat death isn't the destruction of time, it's its perfection. It's possible, of course, that time never truly ends but transforms. Some theories whisper that in extreme states, time might curl back upon itself, looping endlessly in closed circles. Others suggest it might break apart, branching into disconnected fragments, each unaware of the others. In such scenarios, endings and beginnings blur completely, leaving only the sensation of continuity, not because time persists, but because consciousness cannot perceive its absence. But in the vision of perfect equilibrium, time's story reaches its softest chapter. No ticking, no unfolding, no rushing toward anything. Just the endless presence of all that ever was, resting together. From our small corner of awareness, it feels like death. From the universe's side, perhaps it feels like peace. And yet, even in that peace, there is something unyielding about the human mind. The imagination refuses to stay still. It reaches into the frozen silence, painting possibilities where none should exist. It wonders whether something could still move, still dream, still stir. Because even in the thought of time's end, we cannot help but create motion again. The motion of wondering, the quiet pulse of curiosity that never quite goes out. When everything fades, memory remains, at least for now. It's fragile, fleeting, made of whispers and sparks, yet it stands like a candle in the wind of cosmic oblivion. Long after the stars have burned their last reserves, long after the light from galaxies has stretched itself thin across the expanding dark, memory lingers. It hides in photographs tucked away in drawers, in stories retold by trembling voices, in the trace of laughter carved into an old recording. It is not immune to decay, but it resists it for as long as it can. In a universe ruled by entropy, memory is an act of quiet rebellion. Every act of remembering is a refusal. When we recall, we push back against the pull of forgetting, even if only for a moment. The human brain itself is a battlefield between order and decay, neurons storing patterns, reinforcing them, losing them, rebuilding them again. Each thought is a spark that defies the cold logic of thermodynamics. It takes energy to remember. It takes effort to preserve a story, to tell it once more, to etch it into matter, whether in ink, in code, or in stone. Memory is what life does to hold on, to stretch its moment in the sun just a little longer. Every photograph is an act of defiance. When you lift a camera, you're not just framing an image, you're making a promise that this instant, this light, this emotion will not be swallowed by time. A memory captured becomes a declaration. This mattered. The universe may not care, but we do. We are creatures built from fading light, trying desperately to keep some of it from disappearing. Even language itself is memory stretched across generations. Every word we speak is the echo of 1,000 that came before, shaped by countless lives, passed through countless minds. When entropy whispers that all structures must dissolve, we answer with stories. They are the closest thing we have to permanence. Not the kind that lasts forever, but the kind that lasts long enough to matter. The first humans who carved images into cave walls were fighting the same battle we fight today, the fear that everything we love will vanish without trace. Those shapes, those handprints pressed into stone, were not messages for gods or future civilizations. They were memories given a body, gestures that said, "We were here." Even now, in an age of digital archives and endless data, we are still making the same declaration. Every message sent, every video uploaded, every name written on a gravestone is part of the same defiance. We know the servers will fail someday. The paper will yellow, the stones will crack. But the act itself matters more than the result. It's our way of standing up in a vast, indifferent universe and saying, "I remember, therefore I am." Memory does not stop the universe from decaying, but it bends the meaning of decay. It gives it shape. It transforms loss into story, turning endings into echoes that carry on. A person dies, but their voice remains in the minds of those who loved them. A civilization collapses, but its songs survive in fragments, in ruins, in faint patterns woven into our own. Even when nothing material is left, the pattern of influence lingers, like ripples that keep spreading long after the stone has sunk. Perhaps that's the real power of memory. Not to preserve matter, but to preserve pattern. The atoms that once formed Shakespeare's hand are scattered across the planet, yet his words continue to rearrange new atoms into meaning. Each reader becomes part of the same pattern, the same act of defiance against erasure. Memory does not conquer time, but it cheats it. It makes the transient feel eternal, if only for a heartbeat. In this sense, memory is not just a biological trick, it's a cosmic phenomenon. Every structure that resists chaos, every molecule that holds its form against the tide of entropy is a kind of memory. A crystal remembers the pattern of its bonds. DNA remembers how to build a creature. The universe, in its earliest moments, remembered its own laws of motion and expansion. Maybe memory is what gives form to reality itself, the faint persistence of order in the face of inevitable disorder. Yet memory is not perfect. It fades, it distorts, it lies. Sometimes it comforts us, sometimes it hurts. We rewrite the past each time we recall it, bending it to our needs. In this way, memory is not just rebellion, but creation. It doesn't merely preserve the past, it recreates it, keeps it alive by constantly reshaping it. That's what makes it human. We don't remember facts, we remember meanings. We remember how it felt to stand in the rain, the warmth of a voice, the ache of loss. Even when details dissolve, the emotion remains, glowing faintly like an ember in the dark. Every culture has found its own way to keep those embers alive. Myths, rituals, songs, they are all technologies of memory. They bind generations together across centuries, transforming personal experience into something that belongs to everyone. When we tell stories about gods, heroes, or the stars, we are really telling stories about ourselves, about the need to be seen, to be remembered, to matter. In a universe destined for silence, storytelling becomes a sacred act. What's striking is that memory doesn't need to be eternal to have meaning. It only needs to exist long enough to touch another consciousness. That brief transmission, from one mind to another, from one generation to the next, is enough to create continuity. The light may fade, but it passes on before it does. The flame of memory jumps from wick to wick, carrying the warmth of life through time. That continuity is what keeps the universe from feeling entirely empty. Perhaps immortality isn't about lasting forever. Perhaps it's about being remembered long enough to become part of something larger, the collective memory of existence itself. Every species that ever lived, every act of kindness, every discovery adds a line to that grand story. Even if it all fades in the end, the universe once contained memory, which means it once contained meaning. The story was told. That's enough. In the vast ledger of cosmic time, our lives are barely footnotes, yet those footnotes hold entire worlds: laughter, love, curiosity, pain. Each memory is a small defiance against the inevitable quiet, a soft refusal to vanish unnoticed. The beauty of memory lies not in its permanence, but in its persistence despite knowing it will end. It continues because it must, because to remember is to live. One day, every archive will crumble, every word will lose its carrier, every neuron will fall silent. But in the spaces between those moments, memory will have done its work. It will have carried life forward, however briefly, giving shape to time itself. It doesn't need to win against entropy to matter. It only needs to play the game beautifully before the lights go out. Even now, somewhere across the universe, someone is remembering something: a smell, a face, a song. That small act is enough to keep the cosmos awake, if only for one more breath. Memory is humanity's way of whispering back to the void: I was here. I saw the light. I will carry it for as long as I can. But perhaps the story doesn't end with the human mind. Maybe memory can take other forms, not bound to flesh, not trapped in fragile neurons. The patterns we leave behind, the data, the imprints, the subtle changes we make to the fabric of space and time, they may linger longer than we imagine. Perhaps, hidden within the universe itself, memory waits to be rediscovered, recorded not in books or machines, but in the structure of reality. Because what if memory, like everything else, refuses to truly die? What if it is stored not in minds at all, but in the quiet geometry of the cosmos itself? Physics whispers a tantalizing idea: information cannot be destroyed. It sounds poetic, but it's one of the strangest truths ever uncovered about the universe. Beneath the slow decay of stars and the quiet unraveling of galaxies, there may be something that endures. Not matter, not energy, but the pattern of things. Every movement, every breath, every fleeting thought could still echo somewhere in the cosmic fabric, woven into the deep architecture of reality itself. To understand this, we have to go where even light surrenders, into the mouth of a black hole. These cosmic giants are the ultimate agents of entropy, consuming everything that crosses their horizon, crushing matter and memory alike into silence. For a long time, physicists believed that whatever fell inside was gone forever, erased beyond recovery. But nature, it seems, does not like to forget. In the 1970s, Stephen Hawking discovered that black holes aren't perfectly black. They glow faintly, shedding energy as Hawking radiation. That discovery raised a haunting question. If a black hole can evaporate, what happens to the information inside it? Does it vanish with the black hole, or does it somehow escape? The answer could rewrite our understanding of existence itself. Because if information truly disappears, the universe becomes inconsistent. The laws of physics break their own rules. Yet if information survives, it means that nothing, not even death on a cosmic scale, is absolute. Some scientists think the information clings to the surface of the event horizon, encoded in the smallest possible bits, like the grooves of a cosmic record. Others believe it seeps out slowly, hidden within the faint hiss of Hawking radiation. More recent ideas suggest that space and time themselves may be built from information, that the universe is not a machine made of matter, but a story made of data. If that's true, then the end of matter doesn't mean the end of meaning. Picture it. Every atom that's ever existed, every pulse of light, every motion of your hand, still there in some faint form, written into the fabric of spacetime. The heat of your breath, the way sunlight touched your skin this morning, those details may not be gone, just transformed. Entropy might scatter them beyond recognition, but it never deletes the record completely. The universe keeps its receipts. It's an unsettling thought. It means that everything that has ever happened still echoes through reality, like ripples that never fully fade. Somewhere in the tangled equations of quantum gravity, the record of your existence may still be humming quietly. You are part of the universe's memory, one pattern among countless others, preserved not as an object, but as an imprint in the great sea of information. This idea transforms the way we think about loss. When we say something is gone, what we really mean is that it has changed form beyond our recognition. The matter that made you will someday feed a tree or drift through space as dust. But the information that defined your existence, the specific arrangement of particles, the story they told, doesn't simply vanish. It's redistributed, encrypted, diffused, but still there in some cosmic language too complex for us to read. Maybe that's why we have such a deep instinct to remember, to record, to tell stories. We are mirrors of the universe's own behavior. Just as black holes store what they consume, we store what we experience. Every memory, every piece of art, every act of writing is a translation of reality into a different kind of permanence. In a way, we are extensions of the same cosmic drive to preserve pattern against oblivion. Of course, we don't experience this preservation directly. To us, the past fades. But on the deepest level, the universe might never truly forget. Imagine time as a vast tapestry woven from every interaction that has ever occurred. The threads of your life are part of that weave, inseparable from the whole. You will fade as a conscious being, but the mark you leave, the information of your existence, remains entangled with the rest. Some physicists describe this as the holographic principle, the idea that all the information within a region of space can be described by data stored on its boundary. It's a strange, beautiful thought, that the universe might be one enormous hologram, every point containing a reflection of the whole. In such a reality, nothing is truly lost, only folded into new configurations. This makes entropy itself seem less like destruction, more like translation. It doesn't erase the story, it scrambles it, writes it in another language. Over billions of years, the words drift apart, their meanings dissolve, but the letters, the raw information, persist. Somewhere in the quiet hum of cosmic background radiation, in the quantum vibrations of empty space, every love, every loss, every heartbeat is still encoded. The universe, in its silence, remembers. There's a quiet comfort in that. The thought that nothing is ever truly gone, only changed beyond our grasp. When we lose someone, when we say goodbye, when the world feels like it's slipping toward oblivion, maybe that's not the end. Just another form of storage, another way of being preserved. The atoms continue their dance. The energy continues its flow. The information remains. It doesn't need to be conscious to matter. Perhaps, in the far future, when all stars have gone cold, when the last black hole evaporates into mist, the universe will still be carrying this great archive of everything that ever was. Not as images or memories, but as pure pattern, spread across an infinite calm. The final state of everything might be a kind of universal memory, a sea of information so vast, so complete, that it contains every story ever told. If that's true, then entropy isn't the enemy of meaning, but its curator. It breaks things apart so they can be reassembled in new ways, compressing the history of existence into a final, elegant code. Somewhere in that code is you. Not as you are now, but as a ripple in the grand pattern of being, a spark that once burned brightly in the dark. There's a strange poetry in knowing that we can't be deleted. It means that the universe itself is the ultimate storyteller, archiving its own unfolding. Every collision, every creation, every death contributes to the same grand narrative, one where even silence has texture. When we look up at the stars, we're not just seeing light from the past, we're seeing memory in motion, ancient information finally reaching our eyes. So maybe we don't have to fear disappearance. Maybe what we call death, decay, or loss is simply the universe reorganizing its library, folding our chapters into new volumes. The story doesn't end. It's just told differently. In that sense, each of us is already eternal. Not in the way religions promise, not as a conscious soul drifting forever, but as data inscribed into the fabric of existence. Entropy may scatter us, but it can never truly erase us. The universe keeps everything in its own strange way, forever recorded in the language of physics. And if the universe remembers everything, could it one day remember itself? Could the great pattern, once complete, look back upon its own history, that recognizing in its infinite complexity the reflection of all that ever was? Perhaps that is the true purpose of all this. Not creation, not destruction, but self-awareness on a cosmic scale. The universe, remembering its own story. Some theories suggest the universe may rise again, that even in its final stillness, something inside the silence stirs, a faint memory of movement, a breath waiting to return. The idea is called the rebirth hypothesis, a vision of the cosmos not as a line with a tragic ending, but as a circle breathing in and out through eternity. To see it is to imagine a universe that never truly dies, but only changes rhythm, pausing between heartbeats that span eons. In these cyclic models, entropy doesn't win forever. After the last photon fades and the cosmic fabric stretches to near emptiness, the laws that once drove expansion may shift. Gravity could reassert itself, pulling the scattered remnants back inward. Slowly, over incomprehensible stretches of time, the cold ash of existence would begin to gather, drawn together into a single dense seed, silent, infinite, waiting. Then, in a moment beyond imagination, everything would begin again. A new Big Bang, blooming from the ruins of the old. Such a universe doesn't march toward finality. It breathes, endlessly. Expansion follows collapse, light follows dark, order follows decay. Every death gives birth to the next dawn. The cosmos in this telling is not a tragedy, but a rhythm, a grand heartbeat of existence pulsing through eternity. Each cycle is unique, yet linked to all that came before, like waves upon an endless shore. The thought has ancient echoes. Long before physics spoke of entropy, mystics and poets spoke of cosmic return. Hindu philosophy calls it the breath of Brahma, an endless cycle of creation and dissolution. The Stoics saw it as ekpurosis, the world consumed by fire, only to be reborn from its ashes. Even Nietzsche, in his thought experiment of eternal recurrence, asked whether one could love life enough to live it again. Exactly the same, forever. These are not so different from the stories physicists tell now, only dressed in the language of mathematics instead of myth. In the rebirth hypothesis, the universe's final state is not an end but a reset. Entropy may climb to its peak, but in doing so, it lays the groundwork for renewal. The great diffusion of energy, the scattering of matter, the eventual stillness, all of it becomes the seedbed for something new. The ashes of one universe become the soil of the next. Some models suggest that the Big Bang itself might be the result of a prior universe collapsing under its own gravity, a big crunch. Others envision a big bounce, where the universe expands, slows, contracts, and then explodes outward again in an infinite loop. In both visions, entropy never truly vanishes. It reconfigures, folding the chaos of one reality into the birth of another. The slate is never wiped clean, but rewritten. Each cosmos carries faint memories of its ancestors, encoded in the subtle asymmetries of its birth. That idea, that even universes have lineage, is strangely comforting. It suggests that what we call the end is only a transition in a grander cycle of becoming. Stars die so that heavier elements can form. Galaxies dissolve so that new structures can emerge. Whole universes may perish so that others can bloom. In this view, entropy doesn't erase meaning. It drives it forward, transforming stillness into the potential for motion once again. Think of it as the deepest kind of recycling, cosmic composting. All the atoms, all the information, all the beauty that ever existed might someday collapse inward, compressing into a single point so dense that time and space themselves fold into one another. Then, under pressures we cannot fathom, it bursts open. The newborn universe expands, wild and hot, scattering matter and energy anew. Somewhere, billions of years later, a planet forms, clouds swirl, and something begins to breathe. Perhaps in a way it's us, not the same, but related, carrying echoes of what once was. If such cycles are real, then death, whether of stars, civilizations, or even universes, is never final. It is a pause in an endless rhythm, the end of one verse before the next begins. Every atom in your body might someday help ignite a new sun. Every photon that once warmed your skin might become part of a new dawn. Entropy wins for a while, but it doesn't last forever. It resets, it transforms, it starts the game again. This perspective softens the dread of finality. It reframes the end of everything as part of a larger living process. The universe may not seek permanence, it may seek renewal. Its goal may not be to last, but to begin again. Just as life on Earth thrives on cycles, birth, decay, rebirth, the cosmos itself might do the same, only on scales so vast that human time can barely whisper their rhythm. It's a vision that turns despair into serenity. The thought that even after all has faded, after every light has gone out, the pulse continues. Somewhere in the darkness, the next breath is gathering. the silence before a new symphony, the stillness before a new dawn. The universe, like a great phoenix, resting in its ashes before spreading its wings again. There's something deeply human in this longing for return. Perhaps it's because we sense, in our own small lives, the same pattern: endings that lead to beginnings, grief that births wisdom, destruction that opens space for creation. We are made of cycles. Our cells die and renew, our thoughts dissolve and reform, our world changes and rebuilds. It's no wonder we dream of a universe that does the same. Some scientists, though, are cautious. The evidence for such cosmic rebirth is uncertain. The universe's expansion seems to be accelerating, driven by dark energy, making collapse unlikely. Yet even here, mystery persists. We still don't know what dark energy truly is, or whether it could someday reverse. We are watching a story in motion without knowing how many chapters it holds. The question remains open, not a conclusion, but an invitation. Even if the rebirth never comes, the thought of it changes how we see our place in the cosmos. It shifts our attention from fear of endings to reverence for transformation. It invites us to see entropy not as a destroyer, but as part of an ancient dance, one where chaos feeds creation and death becomes the quiet prelude to new life. Take a breath. Feel it move in, then out. That rhythm, expansion, contraction, is the same rhythm that may govern the entire universe. Every inhalation, every heartbeat, every tide mirrors the same cosmic pulse. The microcosm within you is a reflection of the macrocosm beyond. You are not separate from that cycle. You are part of it, made from its rhythm, moving to its quiet beat. The rebirth hypothesis doesn't promise immortality. It doesn't say we'll return as ourselves, but it does suggest that nothing truly ends. The atoms that form you will someday belong to something new. The patterns that make you possible will ripple forward, folded into the next iteration of existence. You are part of the universe's memory, and that memory, like breath, never really stops. Entropy wins, but only for a while. The universe may cool, but it will breathe again. Perhaps that's what all creation is, the long, slow heartbeat of eternity. But what if the secret of survival isn't written in the stars or hidden in physics, but waiting quietly inside the way we see? To exist, knowing it will end. That's the essence of life. Every moment, no matter how small, is a quiet act of defiance against impermanence. The laughter that echoes in a room, the light that bends across a loved one's face, the warmth of a hand that will one day grow cold, all of it glows with a fragile brilliance precisely because it cannot last. Entropy is not just the universe's law of decay. It is the backdrop that gives life its color. Without loss, beauty would mean nothing. Without time, there could be no tenderness. The beauty of impermanence is a truth so vast, it lives in everything we know. It hums in the slow melting of glaciers, in the fading trails of comets, in the turning of seasons. Each leaf that falls does not mourn its descent. It completes the story of its growth. Each wave that collapses upon the shore carries the memory of the tide before it, then surrenders to the sea once more. Entropy doesn't erase the world's beauty. It frames it. It draws the edges around every precious thing, reminding us that all forms must yield so that others can rise. Permanence is a dream we carry to soothe our fears, yet it's the very absence of permanence that gives life its heartbeat. The stars we see tonight are ghosts, their light traveling across millennia to touch our eyes before fading into the dark. They're already gone, yet still here. A paradox that defines everything we love. Even our own bodies are mosaics of impermanence, replacing themselves cell by cell, dying and rebirthing silently, without pause. We are living transitions, never fixed, always becoming. Entropy, in this light, becomes less of a threat and more of a teacher. It whispers that everything must move, that holding on too tightly breaks the natural rhythm of existence. It teaches us to see with softer eyes, to love not because things last, but because they don't. When you watch a sunset, part of what moves you isn't just the light, but the knowing that it will soon be gone. When you hear a familiar voice, part of what makes it sacred is the knowledge that one day it will fall silent. This quiet awareness turns every moment into a ceremony. We spend much of our lives trying to outpace decay, building, preserving, recording, holding. But what if the meaning isn't in the preservation, but in the participation? A flower doesn't try to stay in bloom. It opens fully, then lets go. Its purpose isn't to last, but to express. Maybe we're not here to defy entropy, but to dance within it, to shine fully, knowing that the darkness will come, to love even though it ends, because that ending is what gives love its weight. Think of the great civilizations that once stood across the earth. Their temples are ruins now, their languages reduced to fragments carved in stone. Yet even in ruin, they move us. The cracks, the missing pieces, the echoes, they speak of passage, of time's touch. Beauty doesn't vanish when things fall apart, it transforms. The brokenness itself becomes sacred, a new kind of wholeness that only impermanence can reveal. Maybe that's the quiet secret of entropy, that it doesn't destroy meaning, it refines it. It strips away the illusion of eternity so that we might see the raw truth beneath, that life's worth lies not in duration, but in depth. The moment you realize something is slipping away, it becomes infinitely precious. The awareness of loss sharpens the senses, deepens the soul. Entropy, in its gentle cruelty, gives us that awareness. It is not an enemy, but a mirror. Every person you've ever met, every story you've ever heard, carries the mark of impermanence. We are temporary beings speaking temporary words in a temporary world, yet through this transience, we find connection. The fragility of life makes empathy possible. We understand each other because we all share the same fate, the same slow dissolution into memory and dust. This shared ending binds us closer than eternity ever could. Entropy even makes art possible. Music is only beautiful because it fades. Each note holds meaning in relation to the silence that surrounds it. A painting draws its power from the tension between motion and stillness, form and decay. The most haunting art often feels like it's slipping away as you look at it, a fleeting echo of something you can't quite hold. That is entropy at work, giving weight to the ephemeral. The universe, viewed through this lens, becomes an act of compassion. Not cruel, not indifferent, but deeply tender in its transience. It offers everything with the promise that it will be taken away, urging us to see, to feel, to cherish while we can. The brevity of life isn't punishment, it's permission. Permission to live deeply, to love recklessly, to create knowing it will fade, to see the sacred in the fleeting. When we stop fearing impermanence, we begin to notice its quiet grace. The way morning light shifts across a wall, never the same twice. The way laughter lingers just long enough to remind us we are here. The way even pain, once endured, becomes a memory softened by time. Impermanence is the universe's way of keeping us awake. Without it, everything would flatten into sameness. With it, each heartbeat becomes a miracle. Somewhere, entropy is winning. Stars are cooling, galaxies are drifting apart, time is stretching thin. Yet within that slow unraveling, life keeps blooming. Not in spite of impermanence, but because of it. Every death enriches the soil for new beginnings. Every ending clears the space for something else to arrive. The cosmos itself may one day fall silent, but within that silence, new music could be waiting. To exist, knowing it will end, is not a tragedy. It's a triumph of awareness. It's the universe experiencing itself with open eyes, knowing the story will not last, but telling it anyway. We are part of that act, fleeting expressions of cosmic wonder, here for a moment, bright against the dark. Entropy will claim us, but it cannot take away the beauty of having been. So perhaps the goal was never to last forever. Perhaps the gift is to matter, to burn briefly, to feel deeply, to leave ripples that fade slowly into the vastness. Meaning isn't measured in endurance, but in resonance. And if meaning survives the end, then perhaps life was never meant to last, only to matter. When entropy wins, life doesn't vanish, it transforms. It drifts from one form to another, never truly gone, never truly still. The body that breathes today is built from atoms once locked in stone, water, stars. Those same atoms will outlast you, rearranging themselves in endless combinations. Perhaps one will flicker again as part of a flame, or scatter through the air as dust, or fall silently into the heart of a new world. Nothing ever disappears. It only changes its rhythm. Every ending feeds the next beginning, though not always in ways we can see. A fallen tree nourishes soil. The light of a dead star guides travelers long after its fire has gone out. Even within the smallest cell, death is part of life's choreography. Old molecules break apart so new ones can take shape. The pattern shifts, but the song continues. In the language of physics, energy cannot be destroyed. It only changes its arrangement, spreading, blending, softening into new forms. But behind that sterile phrasing lies something tender. It means that the warmth in your hands, the light in your eyes, the rhythm of your pulse, none of it is lost. It disperses, yes, but dispersal is not erasure. It is continuity, written in a different dialect. The atoms in your body have lived many lives. They've drifted through oceans of hydrogen, fused in the cores of ancient stars, scattered in cosmic winds, cooled into planets, dissolved into rivers. You are a living archive of transformations billions of years in the making. Every breath you take connects you to volcanoes that once roared, to rain that once fell on prehistoric seas, to the hearts of stars that died before the Earth even existed. You are not separate from entropy's current. You are one of its most beautiful expressions. When we speak of life, we tend to mean the conscious spark, the brief window of awareness between birth and death. But life is not a single spark. It's the fire itself, passing from one torch to another, never fully contained. The same force that makes grass grow through cracked pavement also fuels galaxies to spin. It is motion itself, a pulse that survives every collapse. Even when life as we know it disappears from a planet, its echo remains. The patterns it created, the arrangement of molecules, the traces in rock, the altered chemistry of air, those are fingerprints that do not fade quickly. The universe keeps records in the language of structure. Every change leaves a mark, however faint, that tells the story of what once was. Entropy does not end life. It teaches it to move differently, to evolve, to adapt, to spread itself thinner across space and time. In a way, entropy forces life to become more creative. When one path closes, another opens. When warmth fades, complexity seeks balance in cooler domains. Even death is part of this learning, an opening for transformation, a soft transition rather than an abrupt stop. Consider the stars again. They live by burning, by spending themselves freely until nothing remains. Yet their deaths sow the universe with heavier elements, the very materials needed for planets, oceans, lungs, thoughts. Without their destruction, there could be no us. Entropy births structure in its own strange way, scattering the ingredients of life more widely, making the cosmos fertile for new beginnings. The more things break apart, the more possibilities emerge. So perhaps life doesn't fight entropy. Perhaps it dances with it. The rise of order within chaos, the emergence of structure from randomness. That's what life has always done. A single bacterium organizes molecules into purpose. A forest arranges sunlight into shade, air into breath, decay into soil. Even consciousness is just another pattern, a shimmering self-awareness built from particles too small to know what they're doing. We are order blooming out of disorder, however briefly. The tragedy is not that this pattern fades, but that we forget how connected it is. The cells that die in your body each day are quietly recycled into others. The energy you release in heat and breath will warm someone else's air. Every act of loss is also an act of return. The universe reuses everything, endlessly. One day, long after life's last spark has faded from Earth, the dust of our planet may become part of another star system. Our oceans, once vaporized, could condense into rain somewhere else. The memories written in our DNA will dissolve, yet their essence, the drive to become, to organize, to live, might echo again in other forms. Perhaps not human, perhaps not even conscious, but alive in the broader sense. There's something profoundly peaceful in knowing that nothing truly disappears. Even silence is full of motion. Even emptiness hums. The photons leaving your skin right now will travel across space for billions of years, carrying your warmth into the dark. Somewhere, far beyond your knowing, they might fall upon a new world, strike a new molecule, awaken something that grows. You will not know it, but you will have been there in a small way. Life, when seen like this, is less of an individual event and more of a cosmic continuity. We are threads in a vast tapestry, each woven from the remnants of what came before. Our deaths are not interruptions. They are transitions, the handing off of material, energy, and story to whatever follows. Entropy ensures that no single pattern can last forever, but it also ensures that the weave never stops. Perhaps this is the universe's most graceful secret, that in the process of undoing, it creates. The spreading of energy, the cooling of stars, the breaking of atoms, these are not failures, but the very means by which new forms arise. Life is not fragile in the way we think. It is persistent, adaptable, humble enough to shed its skin when the time comes. So where does life go when entropy wins? It goes everywhere. into the dust that shapes new worlds, into the light that crosses impossible distances, into the quiet motion of space itself. It becomes the background hum of existence, diffused yet eternal in its presence. It stops being a single melody and becomes the entire symphony. Perhaps the truest immortality lies not in lasting, but in transforming. To keep becoming, to keep giving, to keep spreading one's pattern into the wider whole. Even after consciousness fades, the memory of life is written in the geometry of atoms, in the texture of space-time, in the soft whisper of background radiation that once carried our warmth. So when entropy claims the last star, when time slows to its final stillness, life will not end. It will have already woven itself into everything, into the motion of decay, into the birth of new order, into the very fabric that holds it all together. And so, at the edge of time, we arrive at the quiet truth of it all. The universe is not fighting itself, it's completing itself. From the first flash of creation to the last whisper of decay, everything that has ever existed is part of a single unfolding. Not a war between order and chaos, but a long, patient reconciliation. The stars were never battling the darkness. They were teaching it how to glow. The galaxies weren't resisting expansion. They were learning how to drift. Every rise, every fall, every transformation that followed was part of a pattern too vast to name, too elegant to resist. Entropy, so often cast as a destroyer, is only the silence after music, the stillness that allows the echo to fade into memory. In that silence, nothing is lost. Every photon that ever escaped a sun, every vibration that trembled through a heart, every fleeting thought that once rippled across a mind, all of it still moves, still hums in the deep fabric of space. The universe remembers not as we do, with language or image, but through resonance. The energy that was once laughter or grief or warmth doesn't vanish. It softens, disperses, merges into the low hum that holds the cosmos together. Even the quiet between stars carries traces of what once sang. We often think of the end as something tragic and extinguishing, but it is closer to completion. A candle burning out is not a failure of flame, it is the fulfillment of its purpose. The wax, the wick, the air all play their parts until there is nothing left to transform, and in that final glow lies a kind of peace. So it is with the universe. The galaxies spend themselves into stillness, not as victims of entropy, but as participants in a long return home. The heat death is not a collapse into nothing, but a settling into balance, the moment when all contrasts dissolve. Every flicker of life, every burst of creation, every fleeting gesture of consciousness, each has been a note in the cosmic song. The song began with the first light, when the universe learned to speak in radiation and space, when matter cooled into the possibility of stars. Those stars burned themselves into new elements, and from their ashes came planets, seas, and eventually eyes that could look back and see them. For a brief interval, existence became aware of itself. That awareness is part of the music too, the shimmering chord that rises near the end, before the final quiet arrives. Meaning is not erased when entropy wins. It is gathered. All the stories, all the movements, all the lives that ever unfolded are folded back into the whole. In human terms, it is like reading a great novel that closes not with tragedy, but with stillness, the kind of ending that lingers because it feels inevitable. The characters are gone, but their echoes remain in the reader, in the memory of what was felt. The universe is both storyteller and listener. Its ending is not an erasure, but the moment when the story becomes complete enough to rest. There's a quiet beauty in the thought that nothing was ever wasted. The stars that burned, the worlds that shattered, the beings that lived and died, all contributed to the cosmic balance. Entropy is simply how the universe keeps its promise to itself, that everything that rises will return, that every pulse will slow, that every burst of brilliance will one day soften into calm. It is not punishment, it is reconciliation, a return to the symmetry from which it began. In a way, entropy is compassion. It allows rest. The stars do not burn forever, nor should they. Even brilliance grows tired, even creation seeks pause. The long stillness that follows is not the absence of life, but its completion, the fulfillment of a rhythm that has played itself out across billions of years. The cosmos exhales, having given all it could give, and in that final exhalation lies serenity. The energy that once danced wildly now spreads evenly, like a calm sea after a storm. There's a profound intimacy in knowing that the same laws that shape galaxies also cradle us. The warmth of your skin, the spark behind your eyes, the rise and fall of your breath, all of it obeys the same music. You are made of the same particles that once drifted through ancient nebulae, driven by the same thermodynamic current that governs stars. When you rest, the universe rests through you. When you release, it releases. We are not separate from the closing of the song. We are part of its cadence. Meaning itself depends on impermanence. If everything lasted forever, there would be no reason to feel deeply, no reason to create, no reason to love. Entropy gives weight to the temporary, significance to the fragile. It reminds us that the fleeting is what makes life luminous. The fading light of day is beautiful because it fades, because it reminds us that we are witnessing something that cannot be repeated in exactly the same way again. The end is not a flaw in the design. It is the design's grace. When the universe finally falls into stillness, all distinctions will vanish. No hot or cold, no before or after, no here or there. Just a perfect, quiet balance. To us, that sounds like death, but to the universe, it may feel like wholeness, a return to the simplicity it left behind when it exploded into being. In that stillness, every vibration of existence, from the birth of galaxies to the thought of a single mind, will merge into a single timeless harmony. A universe that no longer moves, because it has become its own memory. We've spent our brief time under the stars, trying to resist entropy, building monuments, stories, and civilizations as acts of defiance. But what we've really been doing is learning how to understand it. To see that decay is not cruelty but closure, not loss but transition. Everything that exists is both rising and falling at once, both growing and dissolving. The more we learn to accept that rhythm, the more we begin to sense the beauty of the quiet truth. When the last star fades, the universe will not grieve. It will rest. Every pulse of heat, every heartbeat, every flicker of flame will have played its role in bringing about that calm. The great engines of creation will have emptied themselves into the vastness, leaving behind a smooth, luminous silence. Not cold in feeling, but clear, like the pause after a deep breath. In that final stillness, the universe will dream of itself again. The energy that once made stars could once more shimmer into form, or maybe it won't need to. For the first time, it will simply be whole, unbroken, complete. The long song will have finished its last note, and the echo of its melody will drift forever across the quiet sea of being. The universe is not fighting itself, it's completing itself. From the burning of suns to the cooling of dust, from the laughter of life to the hush of eternity, it has been composing the same refrain all along. Entropy was never the villain. It was the final movement of a cosmic symphony, the soft descent into peace after an unimaginable crescendo, the great rest after the long cosmic song. As the universe cools and quiets, life's brief rebellion seems destined to fade. But in that fading, there is a kind of grace, the soft exhale after the long inhale of creation. Everything that ever was, the laughter of stars, the whispers of oceans, the thoughts of distant minds, becomes part of the same peaceful silence. Entropy does not steal beauty. It preserves it by returning it to simplicity. In its own quiet way, it loves balance more than chaos. The warmth of your breath, the pulse in your veins, the glow of galaxies, all are borrowed moments of imbalance, gifted to you by a universe that dreams of rest. Take a moment and breathe. Feel the warmth in your chest, that tiny rebellion against the cold. That's life, making order from the void. It won't last forever, but it was never meant to. It was meant to be felt. When the stars go dark and time itself grows still, what remains isn't nothing, but the memory of everything that ever tried to exist. If entropy wins, life does not go anywhere. It finally rests. Good night, universe. You've done enough.